Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here for our first regular meeting for the month of April. I'd like to let everybody know that this meeting is being audio and video recorded and live streamed on the Town of Innisfil's YouTube channel and shall form part of the record, which will be retained in accordance with the town's retention bylaw. So I want to thank everybody. We have full attendance of council tonight, staff, and those here in the audience and those watching from home. Thank you so much for being here this evening. We'll start with our open forum, which is item 2 on the agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll start first with our land acknowledgement statement, and it would be Councillor Saunders.
The town of Innisfil acknowledges that Innisfil is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. The town also acknowledges that this land is the traditional territories of the First People of Turtle Island and it is shared between the Anishinaabe people of Beausoleil First Nation, Chippewa of Rama First Nation, and Chippewa of Georgina Island First Nation, and we thank them for their generations of stewardship. This meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people, and as settlers, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. The town acknowledges the forced sacrifices that are the foundation of Canadian society today. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. As we enter April, we can see around us it is the time of year when the land is waking up. The spring equinox recently passed, daylight is returning, water is moving again. The maple trees are producing their sap, and the rabbits and skunks have made their appearance. This is not only a change in weather, but a reminder of our reciprocal relationship with this land. So let's reflect with gratitude and take seriously our shared responsibility to honor the lands and the water. I share that with you. It was a statement made at the AMO board meeting I was at last week by the CAO of Kitchener, and the words really touched me, so I wanted to share them all with you today. We'll now go to open forum, and we had no one interested in participating in open forum this evening. So we'll go to item 3, which is the approval of the agenda. And I would ask for a mover and a seconder, please, to approve the agenda as amended to include the additional information for the Fire Master Plan. Moved by Deputy Fowler, seconded by Councillor Saunders. All those in favor? That is carried. Next, I would ask each member of council if anyone has a disclosure of interest, pecuniary or conflict of interest. Seeing no hands, if one becomes apparent to you during our discussions, please let it be known at that time. Next is item 5, which is presentations and petitions, and we're delighted to have with us tonight the Innisfil Community Foundation, who will give us their 2025 impact report. Welcome.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor Dolan, Deputy Mayor Fowler, Councillor CAO Gershaw, and town staff. I'm Sandra Rizzardo, Chair of the Innisfil Community Foundation Board of Directors. Joining me tonight is Vice Chair Howard Courtney, President Ann Kell, Treasurer Ann Smith, Director Christine Hampton, she's new, so be kind to her, and Executive Director Whitney Salas. It is our pleasure to be here to present the impact of the investment for 2025. Since its inception, the Innisfil Community Foundation has made a meaningful and measurable impact in our community, made possible through the continued support and generosity of Council. Because of your commitment, we can ignite generosity, inspire leadership, and build stronger Innisfil for everyone. We hope tonight's presentation clearly demonstrates the depth of your impact. I'm pleased to share that in 2025, we invested $238,909 into 19 charities supporting Innisfil residents. This marks a new record for both total funding distributed and the number of organizations supported. As you can see, our granting reflects the wide range of needs across our community. These grants were made possible through your continued support, through Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation funding, as well as the Mayor's Golf Tournament and the Mayor's Breakfast.
Each year, we host our Community Charity Roundtable, bringing together local organizations to share their challenges, explore collaboration, and discuss impact. This event continues to be incredibly valuable, creating space for connection and shared learning across the sector. We were especially pleased to see members of council join us last year, and we hope you'll attend again this year. What we're hearing is consistent. The cost of living remains high. Demand for services continues to grow, and mental health needs are increasing. This is reflected in our grant requests. We continue to see record demand, both in volume and size of request. We take very seriously our role in ensuring these funds are directed where they are needed most, always prioritizing Innisfil residents and high-impact outcomes. Next slide, thank you. Several of our 2025 grants made a direct impact on the folks in our community who are struggling with rising costs. We granted $25,000 to Community for Kids for their winter clothing program. These funds were used to buy warm winter boots, coats, snow pants, and snowsuits for families in need. They currently support nearly 600 children in Innisfil, plus their families. This program ensures the families can redirect their money to food or rent instead of worrying about the additional costs of winter clothing.
It was a pleasure of the foundation to support Innisfil Food Bank with a 3-year grant totaling $78,498. This will provide food boxes for families in August during a time when demand is high and when families are preparing to send their children back to school with safe school lunches and snacks. The food bank services approximately 175 families per month, many of whom are seniors on fixed incomes, families with young children, and multi-generational households where adult children are now living in homes with their parents. Innisfil Food Bank continues to see a growing demand in the economic pressures increasing in households in our community. Housing stability also continues to be a critical issue in our region. With no shelters in Innisfil, women and children in crises must leave their homes and their home community to seek help. And as a result, in 2025, we supported the Women's and Children's Crisis Shelter in Barrie with funding for transitional housing, helping Innisfil families move from crises to stability and safety. We also funded My Sister's Place, supporting women and children in crises with access to safe housing and essential resources. These grants help create pathways out of crises and help them begin a journey towards long-term security. There's a need for this type of service in Innisfil, and until then, we will continue to help those who help our local residents and families. Also regarding health and healthcare, we're improving healthcare access. It remains to be a top priority for us. Last year, our foundation supported Royal Victoria Hospital towards a new MRI machine, ensuring faster diagnosis and care right here in Innisfil. This is an amazing thing that we can bring healthcare like this and related resources closer to our residents. We also supported Stevenson Memorial Hospital with funding for an epidural pump, as well as we supported the Alzheimer's Society of Simcoe County, providing resources and support for local caregivers. These investments strengthen both the acute care and ongoing community health supports within Innisfil.
Thanks very much. So the next topic is mental health and well-being. Mental health continues, as you know, and we've already heard, to be one of the most pressing needs in our community. In 2025, we supported the Canadian Mental Health Association to enhance access to community-based mental health care through the York Region Mental Health Community Care Centre, and also Seasons Centre for grieving children, providing peer support and outreach for children and families experiencing loss. These programs ensure that residents have access to compassionate, timely support close to home. Next slide. In terms of youth and community programs, I don't need to tell you that investing in youth and community connection is essential to building a strong future for our community. Last year, in our grants, we funded Scientists in School, delivering hands-on STEM learning experiences at Innisfil schools, and there's an upcoming meeting going where we're going to see that program in action soon. Secondly, I Challenge Diabetes, which supports youth living with diabetes to attend summer camp. We Are Villagers, The Villagers, which helps reduce financial barriers so children can participate in extracurricular activities. And finally, Innisfil Scouts, to provide a safe environment for them to learn together.
We also invested in projects that strengthen community life and local organizations. Some of these included support for the Innisfil Farmers Market by purchasing picnic tables for guests to use, a grant to South Simcoe Theatre for facility improvements, funding for independent living services, Simcoe County, to help provide assistive technology, support for Easter Seals Ontario, ensuring inclusive programming, and lastly, a $25,000 grant to Georgian College, which establishes the Innisfil Community Foundation Building Stronger Communities Entrance Award. And this award will support Innisfil students pursuing skilled trades programs. These investments help build a more connected, a more accessible, and a more vibrant Innisfil. Next slide, please. So we have witnessed the power of our community foundation, not only in our own grants, but also through the connections that we've made and how we've inspired others to give. And none of this would have been possible without the support of council and our community. We're grateful for the foresight of past town councils, and we thank all of you, the current council, for continuing to support our community through your commitment to Innisfil Community Foundation. Our foundation is an example of a community coming together. From all of us, thank you for continuing to invest in our community through the Innisfil Community Foundation.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much to the board and for all of your hard work, all of your volunteer hours that you put into the foundation to make sure this money gets into the right hands, and for opening our eyes to the need that is out there. I particularly enjoyed the round table that we had, and we'll try to get there on time this year. Last year, unfortunately, I think our calendars were wrong and we arrived after it started, but we'll make sure we get there on time this year. And thank you for all of the work you do. Members of council, questions or comments? Councillor Waters?
Thank you. I just want to repeat the same thing. Thanks for all the great work that you do personally by sitting on the board and making some very, very wise and difficult choices, but also on behalf of the community, residents, and those people who deserve and get the grants. Thank you for all the work that you do to make sure they get that, and our money goes to good causes that help Innisfil. Thank you very much.
And I'll just add thanks to our wonderful staff here at the town. I think the Mayor's Golf Tournament is almost sold out again this year, so we'll hope to make some money and donate it to the foundation. Thank you so much. So I've got a recommendation that's on the screen to receive the presentation and thank the Community Foundation Board. Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Zanella. All those in favor? That is carried. Next on our agenda is delegations by members of the public, invited guests, or members of staff. And we have one here this evening, and we have Mary Rose Gregarious, and please tell me if I've said that wrong. Mary Rose, you'd like to come and talk to us about seniors programming here in the town of Innisfil. Please, whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. My sincere thanks to Ms. Ann Norris and Ms. Tammy Botham for giving me the guidance and support in developing my deputation. My name is May Rose Gregorios, a proud resident and future retiree here in Innisfil. Mayor, members of council, firefighters, staff, good evening. Tonight, I'd like to speak about strengthening seniors' power in our community. Seniors today are healthier, more active, and more willing to contribute than ever before. Seniors' population is not a problem to manage, it's a strength to mobilize. The question is, are we fully leveraging that potential? Some facts: 20% of Simcoe County residents are 65 years of age or older. We have a growing community of residents with time, experience, and commitment to give back. New retirees 55 to 74 are the fastest growing group, and many are not slowing down. They are leaving or have just left careers in business, trades, education, healthcare, and public service, and they're looking for their next meaningful chapter. 60% of retirees want to remain active and give back to the community. Seniors are not a cost pressure, they are a community asset. When Innisfil makes it easy for seniors to connect and contribute, every resident of Innisfil benefits. What Innisfil is doing so well? Innisfil has shown a clear commitment to community well-being through its recreation programming, community spaces, and inclusive initiatives. These are opportunities for social participation, and the town has taken steps toward accessibility and engagement. These are important foundations. However, like many municipalities, current programming risks falling into a common trap: activities that engage seniors socially but don't fully empower them as contributors. Tonight, I'm bringing a simple, positive message. Innisfil can be known across the region as a town where seniors don't just age well. Innisfil seniors help build a community. They thrive, have impact, and have fun. They age productively, gracefully, and might I add, beautifully. Innisfil already has a strong pieces in place. The opportunity now is to connect those pieces into a clear, easy to navigate seniors system, one that is built around purpose, access, and measurable community impact. Innisfil already supports recreation and social programming that reduces isolation and builds connection. We have facilities and community partners that can serve as a platform for stronger seniors engagement. There is a clear intent toward inclusion and accessibility, an excellent foundation for an age-friendly approach. Good programs become great outcomes when they are coordinated. Right now, seniors and families still have to work hard to find information, to understand what's available, and to step into meaningful roles. I see practical gaps we can fix without losing what's already working. Gap one, it's not centralized. A senior system should be simple, one front door, clear information, and straightforward to join in. Gap two, we're leaving purpose on the table. Social activities matter, but purpose keeps people engaged. Seniors want to mentor, lead, teach, and contribute, not just to attend. Gap three, barriers still block the most isolated. Transportation, mobility, digital access, and outreach can keep people out, even when programs are strong. The fix is not complicated. Design with seniors, make it easy to find, and remove barriers on purpose. Here are the action steps for Council's consideration. actions that move us from scattered offerings to a true senior system. Let us envision Innisfil moving forward and strong with great power. Vision 1, a dedicated leadership with staff lead or small unit having a clear mandate to coordinate seniors programming, partnerships, and outcomes. Vision 2, a seniors hub, physical and digital. We'll have a welcoming hub space and dedicated seniors web page, online presence, the town's front door for programs, services, and opportunities to contribute. The webpage portal should include all resources, events, and supports. It should be easy for seniors to read and navigate. Vision 3, seniors engage in establishing Seniors Advisory Council or structured co-design sessions so older adults shape priorities, schedules, and formats. Vision 4, expanded successful pilot programs townwide, integrated into all municipal planning. Vision 5, retirees engaged in purpose-driven roles. New retirees aren't slowing down. They're still full of energy, have time, still love life. They got juice, they love life, ready to roll up their sleeves and make our community even stronger. Vision 6, skills-based volunteering and mentorship pathways that match experience to town and community needs. Our seniors have the breadth and depth of work and life experience in business and entrepreneurship, skilled trades, education and mentoring, public service and leadership, and the list goes on and on. Vision 7, a robust seniors skills-based bank volunteer matching initiative. Vision 8, barriers intentionally removed, improve transportation options and outreach, offer hybrid options, prioritize accessible spaces, and clear communications so the most isolated can participate. What Innisfil gets back? 1, less isolation, better well-being, because connection plus purpose is powerful. More volunteer capacity, skills and time that strengthen local organizations and town initiatives as Innisfil enhances volunteerism and civic engagement. 3rd, stronger intergenerational community, youth, families, newcomers, and seniors connected through shared projects. 4, better navigation and efficiency, efficient, coordinated service delivery, a system residents can actually find and use. 5, longer life expectancy for seniors and less healthcare cost. 6, regional leadership. This positions Innisfil as an age-friendly innovator in Simcoe County and beyond. Innisfil has a foundation. Now it can lead by moving from programs for seniors to a senior built with seniors, designed for purpose and access. When we do that, we don't just support aging in place, we activate one of our community's greatest strengths. Let's give our seniors the home and opportunity that they deserve. In summary, this is what I'd like to really push forward, that Innisfil Town Council directs staff to develop a comprehensive seniors strategy aligned with age-friendly principles and to report back to council within 12 months with an implementation plan and resource options, and that the seniors strategy include at minimum 1, designation of a dedicated staff lead or unit accountable for coordinating seniors programming, partnerships, and outcomes across Innisfil. 2, creation of an Innisfil Seniors Hub with both a physical gathering space and a digital front door, including a dedicated seniors webpage that centralizes programs, services, supports, and ways to contribute. 3rd, an establishment of Seniors Advisory Council or structured co-design sessions to ensure programs are designed with seniors. 4th, development of purpose-driven pathways for skills-based volunteering, mentorship, and civic engagement with specific purpose and engaging new retirees. And 5, a simple framework to measure and publicly report participation, accessibility, and community impact, including actions that reduce social isolation. Thank you for your time and for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much for that presentation. You sure packed a lot into it, and your energy is contagious. So thank you so much for that.
Senior.
Questions or comments for Ms. Gregorius? Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Mayor Rose. Great presentation. I'm the councillor for Ward 6, which has the majority, not the majority, a lot of our seniors residents. And I would like to hook up with you so we can have a meeting. Just let you know, we do have a mobile seniors activity living center run by the town. And they have drop-ins for Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays all across town. They're in Cookstown, they're the Morgan Russell, and they're at the Wheel, which is in Sandy Cove. So we do have sort of have the basis of what you're looking to start. I can also get you in contact with the Homeowners Association from Sandy Cove. And maybe we can all meet together and start to see what we can implement with what you have for your plans.
Thank you. As I stated earlier, when I spoke to Tammy, you have so many great things going around here in Innisfil, and I'm proud to be here. But the thing is, we don't really know much of the great things that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, questions or comments? I just wanted to add, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk. There's all of it's happening. It's just how do we coordinate it in one spot, one easy place so people can see it. Simcoe County does a lot too. They have their age-friendly initiative project. It's a positive aging strategy. They have an award system for businesses that are senior-friendly. They have a number of projects and processes. Right now, there's a grant opening for if you want to make renovations in your home so that you can stay in your home longer. If there's some kind of accessibility issues, you can apply to them for a grant and they'll come in and do renovations in your home. So we do have so much going on. It's just, you're right. I think you're right when you said we've got to find one central repository for all of that information. And thank you so much for your presentation.
Yes. Thank you, and as I said, I can't say it more than enough that we just don't know the great things that you do. But the most important thing that I'd like to highlight here is involve as seniors. We have so much to give. Thank you.
Nothing about us without us.
Right.
Right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. So could I have a mover and a seconder, please, to receive the delegation with thanks? Moved by Councillor Waters and seconded by Councillor Drotch. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item 7. That is our chance to report out on different associations you've appointed to represent Innisfil at. Is there anyone who's been to any of their meetings that they would like to talk about? No, it's been a quiet week, I guess. I've just had one, I believe. That would be the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. We had both a committee of the whole and a council meeting. Much of the work that is being done now is surrounded by the Healthy Democracy Project, which is a project that's trying to get more people out and interested in running for the fall municipal election. There's tons of guidance, there's tons of workshops, lots of that going on that people can get involved in. And much of that information, thanks to this project this year, is free. So that's a really important piece. I also attended an Empower board meeting, but I won't go into that because our AGM is coming up very soon. So you're going to have hear from us on June the 3rd. And also an in-services board meeting. And at the in-services board meeting, it was the time of year when all of the annual water reports, wastewater reports, MECP inspections were all reported on. They're all on the website. You can go on the website and look into any of the drinking water systems, understand the procedures and the maintenance, and also the samplings that are done to make sure that our drinking water is kept safe. And that's it for me. And so then we'll go on to our consent list. So this is where we go through all of the agendas, items, and the staff reports that have been on the website for a week. If we're happy with the staff report and have no questions, it'll be confirmed at the end of the meeting. If not, we can pull it to committee of the whole to have a fulsome debate or ask more questions. And so we'll get started with those. Item A1 is the special council meeting minutes for March the 18th. A2, the council meeting minutes dated March 25th. And B, the first report was the summary report from the Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting on March 10th. Next is B2. It was the Electoral Engagement Advisory Committee meeting March 25th. C1, the final tax levy bylaw for 2026. Seeing none, we'll go to C2, the Joint Audit Compliance Committee meeting. Nothing. So then we'll go to items D. Staff reports for information, there were none, and bylaws, there were none. Under correspondence for action, F1, that would be the additional information memorandum for the fire master plan. Councillor Ices?
I'd like to refer that to committee, please.
Thank you. Under correspondence for information, G1, the Bradford West Gwillimbury Innisfil Police Services Board meeting from February 18th. There were no motions of which notice has been given, and so we just have the one item pulled tonight. So we'll ask for the recommendation for the consent list recommendation with the one item F1 being pulled and moved by Councillor Drodge, seconded by Councillor Richardson. All those in favor? That is carried. Next, we have a motion to resolve into committee of the whole, please. Moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Ices. All those in favor? That is carried. And so we'll go to the consent list, or the recommendation F1, and I believe there is a presentation first before we go into the recommendation. So whenever you're ready, Chief Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan and members of council. Given the weight of the additional information, I thought it was appropriate to do a bit of a presentation just to clarify some of those things that don't tend to read well or are difficult to understand, so that you know the intent of my additional information, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. So I just want council to know that we heard you, I heard you, and that the memo for additional information has attempted to answer those questions. So we could go to the next slide, thank you. There are the two items that stood out that were asked by council at the last council meeting that this was at in March. One was station analysis, the other was financial clarity. There were a couple of questions that came up from members of council between then and now that I will also comment on quickly, just to cover it so that you've all heard what's happened in conversations and emails as a result. Next slide, please. So I want to start by saying there is independent validation ×3 with the recommendations that are out of our fire master plan. Our first indication of what our service level was and is and where it's going to be was our E&Y report on fire consolidation that was in 2020 when we were contemplating the consolidation of the fire services with Innisfil and Bradford. And then council said we would prefer that we'd had a report, and quite rightly so, that was just covering Innisfil as opposed to a joint. So we did our fire master plan, which was presented at March 11th. And it's interesting that both of those plans and reports were very consistent in what they found. Both of those reports did have a model for slow growth and rapid growth. Both of those reports pointed to the fact that the level of service set by council was appropriate at the time that the studies that were done. But they also pointed to the fact that we are a community that welcomes, encourages, and is looking for rapid growth. Some of that is what we're looking for, and our economic development folks do a great job, but also mandated by the province. Additionally to that, the Innisfil Professional Firefighters Association had a report also generated in a study done by the International Association of Firefighters. And so that is the third report. And I will say, I've seen IFF reports that have been done similar to this. Not often do they line up with fire master plans or other reports that are done on municipalities. But this one does, and it's very close in the recommendations and also the study of Innisfil. So that is something that I think is fairly, it speaks volumes to the fact that 3 independent sources have validated all of this information. It's not based on opinion, but on data. They've studied the data, they've looked at our calls, they've looked at where they are, they've looked at our growth, they look at the type of calls, the type of growth that's coming, all of those things. So they all agreed that growth is coming beyond what we are now. They all say that we are a NFPA 1720 composite fire department. And I know that we talked quite a bit about that in sessions with council. But they also all agree that we are heading towards some of our areas in Innisfil being a 1710, NFPA 1710 fire department, which speaks to high density, high occupancy, and high risk. So the touch point and the interesting point becomes you do not want a municipality where you're setting 2 different levels of service. But we also need to be able to respond to the level of service and the hazards and the risks that are in our community, both for our community members and for our firefighters. So that is the difference and the nuance between 1710 and 1720. And I think that that is a confusing point because it is confusing to someone that, like me, lives and breathes NFPA standards and response times and et cetera every day. But like I said, all 3 of those reports do point to the fact that we have areas right now, specifically in Alcona, that are a 1710 with our population density and our risk profile. We're currently barely meeting those KPIs, but we are meeting them. If you went back over the last 2 council reports where we reported on KPIs at the end of the year, so in the beginning of the following year, you would notice we are in red, but only marginally in red. But that number is getting bigger. And that speaks to the risk that's coming, the increases in population and density, and all those things that make it difficult for us to, or more difficult to respond to, and puts us at a higher risk level to our firefighters as well. So if we go to the next slide, please. Like I said, council has set the level of service appropriately to manage growth. We also need to adjust our emergency services to meet the needs that are coming. And we want to do that along with when those are coming, because we can't add staff and stations or equipment, et cetera, overnight. So we look at things like those 3 reports that all point to are becoming more and more challenged to meet our KPIs, but knowing what is coming. And I want to state right off the hop that I know our growth has stalled. We can look at the numbers and we know the numbers where our growth is stalled. And that's the piece in this fire master plan where it gives, first of all, me and on my shoulders to report to you, to council, when I ask for each of these recommendations to be enacted, that they're going to be done at the time that they're needed. We're not just going to say the fire master plan said immediate 20 firefighters, and I'll speak to the hiring of firefighters in a few minutes. But we want to work with council. We want to make it so that we can absorb those costs a bit easier and slower, realizing that at some point we have to get there. So even though we're slowing down, we have to make sure that we handle the capacity of the risk that is coming. And with those higher risk occupancies and multi-dwelling units, that becomes a high hazard and high hazard growth. So that is why we have done the education and speaking around the difference between a 1710 and a 1720 response. Other emergency services have increased their frontline first responders over the last few years. We have not. We prioritized training and fire prevention staff because we needed them as well. and that was supported by council. But that also means that we haven't changed our suppression capabilities since 2019 when was the last time that we hired full-time career firefighters. And that and the fact that we're moving quickly towards a higher risk level and getting to the point, we're on the cusp of whether it's an acceptable risk or not that we're able to get to those KPIs is why we're talking fire master plan, why we're talking about growth and needing growth based on that. If we could go to the next slide, please. The next 3 slides, I do have visuals on our calls and station locations, and I will describe them. They are a little bit hard to understand, but I want to try to make it as easy for you to understand what I'm trying to have you see. So this is our call volume. This is all the calls that we've had up to December 31st, 2025. You'll notice that the blue is every place there's a blue spot is a call, and when you see a higher density of blue, that means multiple calls in that location. So you can see them in Alcona, up towards Big Bay Point. You see them in Stroud. You see them in Lefroy. You also see them in the Innisfil Heights area. So those darker clusters are a higher volume of calls. Our call volume, when you look at our numbers, went down from 2025 from 2024. And that's because of the implementation of the MPDS, ambulance dispatch system, appropriately dispatching resources based on a bunch more questions that were asked when people called 911 to ask for an ambulance. So sending more appropriate resources meant that our call volume for medical went down. So in 2024, 61% of our calls were medical. So we did 2,734 calls that year. 2025, we went from 61% to 41% medical. And we did 2,445 calls that year. Well, the math doesn't quite seem right, but that's almost an 80% decrease in medical calls. That also means that only doing, I think it was 289 calls less than 2024, means that we did 550 more emergency calls, fire calls. So our emergency call volume is going up. That's a 20% increase when we did 2445 and went up by 550 calls. And that speaks to the growth that is already coming and already here. If we can go to the next slide, please. For ease of visual, I've removed all the calls from this slide. And what this shows us, so each of those stations, as you know, are our current stations, our 5 stations. So the studies that were done are plotted on here. So the lighter the color around each station is their 8-minute drive time. On top of that, we then add response time for career firefighters, which averages at 80 seconds, and for volunteer firefighters, which is 4 minutes. So that time gets added onto drive time. This is just the drive time when they leave the station to get to the call. And then the darker the color gets around a station is the 6, 4, and 2-minute response time. So you can see we're fairly well covered except for the Innisfil Heights area and down in Guilford. Both the Fire Master Plan and the Ernst & Young reports validate that our current stations can meet the 8-minute drive time 95% of the time. And their recommendation was moving a station would only show a marginal difference versus the cost. The next slide is messy, but if we can go to the next slide, please. I don't want you to have to get stuck into reading all the small little print, because I would like to describe it to you. This is our growth projection. So high-rise buildings, 22 of them. That doesn't include the 4 high-rises in the orbit. So we have talked recently about 7 going into Friday Harbor, plus a hotel. We have the remainder mostly along the Alcona corridor and in between Alcona and Stroud area. In that area, we also have between 4,000 and 4,500 homes planned. Then in between Alcona and Lefroy, we have about another 500 homes planned and the orbit. We also have a hotel up at Friday Harbor, And we have a hotel and casino going down in the 89 Reeve Boulevard area. Then we have large buildings planned for Innisfil Heights. There's between 6 and 10 of them that are being talked about or are in plans review or in permitting. So that's increasing our industry, commercial, and retail risk. We haven't even mentioned the fact that around the town campus, we're also looking at a hospital being built in that location 10 years-ish, we don't know, but that also has to be on our radar. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Here is our plotted response times, or not our response times, sorry, our ability to be able to meet our 8-minute drive time if we added a station in the Innisfil Heights area. And just for simplicity, I dropped the pin in between the northbound and the southbound 400 on IBR. And so you can see there that that's really not an expansion, it's risk mitigation and service sustainability. We would be having a career crew out of that station because we don't have many houses to be able to draw from to have a volunteer response. Although when the time comes, we'll look at that and see if that's viable or not. But it builds in our system resiliency. And I know DC funding is a contentious issue and something that's up for debate. But as it stands now, Station 6, because it's a new build, is DC funded eligible. However, speaking with Director Gibson and Treasurer Webb, we would need to look at debt financing first before we could recover the DCs, whatever that means. Next slide, please. The other one that was mentioned at council, so I wanted to show you the visual on that, is if we removed one station and moved another. So removing stations 1 and 3 and building another station around the town campus. This is the 8, 6, and 4, and 2-minute drive times. And you can see in we have a bit more coverage in the Innisfil Heights area. Our highest hazards and where our higher risk and our highest population density is now not covered within that area. So that's just a consideration. And the last footnote there is Station 1 and Station 3 both have paramedics that run out of that station. We are landlords there. We rent them space, and their call volumes and their call responses and locations are based on having stations there. So if we're looking at moving a station or closing a station, we also have to have talks with County of Simcoe paramedics because their responses are tied to those station locations with us being their landlord. Not something that is not, like we can do it, but it complicates the issue of doing a move or a shutting of a station. Next slide, please. So what if we don't act? As mentioned, council has set the level of service as appropriate for most of our community up until the last couple of years for all of our community. But that high density growth is here now. And it shows in our KPIs and our challenges to be able to meet them on the outside of it or just past the outside of it. We've sought after and are welcoming growth and development, including what the province has mandated. We must meet those standards and codes to include the response to those high density, high hazard risk areas that require that level of protection for our community and for our firefighters. Next slide, please. I do want to speak to the financial considerations because some of that is covered in the additional information report. But I do want to first answer a question that came up from Councillor Ices about page 184 to 186 in the Fire Master Plan with reference to the BMA study as it relates to cost per capita. The range that we fit into in the BMA study is a population from 30,000 to 99,000. And we are, I believe, Councillor Rice is 18 out of 26 on that list. It's reasonable to say, given the big range between 30,000 and just short of 100,000, that those smaller municipalities have a lower net per capita cost when you have a volunteer fire department and a smaller community with a single populated area and population density, as opposed to a composite or full-time department, not taking into the fact that we have 5 or 6, depending on how you want to do the math, former hamlets that now form the town of Innisfil. And so we have 1720 rural response in between highly populated and dense areas. So that drives up our per capita cost. The top of page 185 there does describe in the Fire Master Plan our comparison and why some of our costs are what they are compared to the range between 30 and 99,000 population municipalities. Should also be noted that many of those municipalities with similar or more risk than us are the ones who are also composite or career departments. So while we've kind of fit in line where we are, taking a place like North Bay that has multiple fire stations, a completely full-time fire department, obviously their cost per capita is going to be more. But the reason that they have more is because they're responding because of the 1710 requirements, because of the density that they have. I want to make sure council understands this is a staged and manageable investment, not a single-year burden in the Fire Master Plan. Previously, we were looking to hire firefighters, but we prioritized training and fire prevention. But that means now that in the inability to stage our hiring, that's why the Fire Master Plan recommended 20 immediately. I can't hire and train 20 firefighters right away. And I believe that helps us out as a town and you as council making decisions when we talk about budget and FTEs. So you'll see in my additional report there, I've recommended we hire 12 in July of 2027 because we won't get approval for budget until January. So that's 12 firefighters for half a year, with the remaining being hired in January of 2028 for the full crew. So the next recommendation is to start hiring slowly again. And in there, I did write down starting to hire 5 firefighters a year over 4 years in 2030 for a 4th crew. But like I said, we acknowledge the fact that growth has stalled and building has stalled. So we'll take those under advisement and look and come back to council when we're ready to put those into the budget to say, hey, is this a realistic request now? Or is this a request that needs to go down the road? Or it could be the opposite side. Hey, we've now economically been in a position where we're getting a lot more growth quicker than we thought, or quicker than the stalled position that we're in now. So then the recommendation will come for your approval at that point in that way. But we are really wanting to make sure that you understand that we are trying to spread that out as much as possible. So like mentioned, the Station 6 and the location there, the recommendation. Again, we know that the density and the risk is coming. And to be able to procure land, you'll see in the additional report info, is to start purchasing the land, engage an architect and a builder, start to build in 28, hopefully be done in 29 or 30. And that's when growth is anticipated to be happening, and we have servicing available for those industries and businesses that want to come into Innisfil Heights. And so we'd be aligning with having a fire station ready to service those when the risk actually comes. Last slide, please. So just in summary, the Fire Master Plan is about preparing for where Innisfil is going, not just where we are today. It ensures we can safely support growth, reduce risk in key areas, and continue delivering reliable emergency response through a structured and financially responsible approach. We're asking Fire Council to approve the Fire Master Plan, and would like to reiterate this is a phased approach that remains fully within Council's control, understanding that we are moving in some of our areas to the risk level of the NFPA 1710 requirements for response. We're also going to look for those funding opportunities like I spoke about last time. More often than it has been in the past, opportunities are coming to fire services for grants, skills development funds, and so on, and we're going to look for them and apply for them. We're also going to look for partnerships, strategic partnerships. I didn't mention the training facility that we want to also build at Station 6, which includes live fire training. It's difficult to put live fire training in a residential area because of the impact of smoke to people in the municipalities. So we're looking to place that there, and we're going to look for partners. Even since our last council meeting, I was able to have a conversation with Simcoe County Paramedic Chief, and they also need a station in the Innisfil Heights area. And when I told her we were contemplating a station in Innisfil Heights, she said, we want in, we want to help build that because we want to have ambulances out of that location. So we'll continue to look for those opportunities. I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you, Chief. Questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Fowler?
Thank you, Worship. Two questions right off the cuff. Under financial considerations, you mentioned the orange bar says spread full-time and volunteer suppression firefighter hiring over 7 years. That's a bit of a different call than the 12 and the 8. Like, can you explain that so that people understand what you mean by that? Like, are we coming, when it comes to the table, is that one of the options we can extend it to? Or are you just putting it down there as a potential option when it comes?
So there are two points there. It's through you, Mayor Dolan, to Deputy Mayor Fowler. There are 2 points there. We are at the risk level and growth level where we do need a third crew to respond safely. And so in the recommendation of the master plan that's why there was the recommendation for hire 20 immediately. I can't do that. I can't just create 20 people and have them on the road, immediately, so to speak. So that is the first part of that over 7-year period that's mentioned in the additional report. Instead of 20 in 1 year, we'll hire 12, and I won't be able to get them here till January. So in the first year of a budget cycle, our next budget cycle would be 12 firefighters in half a year. The remaining 8 for the rest of the 20, and we'll put them in service, and they will work, and they will help with our coverage until January, when we can hire the additional 8 to have a full, complete crew. The rest is what we're looking to offset when growth and numbers require it. And again, we'll be coming back for the approvals. You're not approving that today.
Thank you. And the other question I have is under the additional information memorandum, you make mention the facility presents opportunities to establish partnerships with neighboring municipalities, educational institutions, and other emergency service organizations. These partnerships could include joint training exercises, skill development programs, and collaborative emergency preparedness initiatives. That, if my understanding is correct, that means people from outside Innisfil will be using the facilities, creating a potential income source. What are we looking at for dollars and cents roughly? Like, I'm not gonna hold your feet to the fire, but I mean, like, just a general idea that how much income would come in that would ease the burden on the taxpayers or even worse, or even better, pardon me, a percentage. What will we be looking at coming back into play there?
Through you, Mayor Dolan, to Deputy Mayor Fowler. You probably won't like this answer, but it depends. It depends because the type of course. If we're doing a theory-only course, and we currently do them in our agreement with the Fire Marshal's office for Regional Training Center. So when we're doing courses that are a 3 or a 5 day, we're charging, depending on the complexity and the needs of the course, between $350 to $750, $800. Covers a lot of our expenses, but then there's a small margin there of also that we have to help repair things that get broken, et cetera, et cetera. If we were to have, if we go down the road and we have a full-blown live fire training facility, I do know that Honda has a live fire building for their partners. So in other words, New Tech, I don't believe they charge them anything, but anyone coming from the outside, there is a cost somewhere $1,000 a day plus materials. It is tough to get in there. I've tried. When I go to base Borden, I'm paying roughly $5,000 a day plus disposables. So I would suggest that we're somewhere probably in the middle of that when we're talking about that complexity. If we're doing things like automobile extrication, right now we have partnerships with local auto wreckers, which we're very thankful for, where they provide us the vehicles at no cost. But if we're doing it and charging people for a course, that's going to change our cost structure. So There is absolutely ways that we can generate revenue with a training center. It's just the itch that hasn't been scratched yet to really dive deep into. And because we were recommending it potentially and starting in 2030, we didn't do the deep dive into numbers to give you on what's a percentage or what's the bottom line that we could use for revenue generation. I'm saying it's there. We just haven't had the time to get into the deep dive on that.
Yes, go ahead, one more.
Thank you, Worship. Okay, so we've talked about the firefighters. I've seen the fire towers in action in Toronto because I work for the Board of Education in Toronto. I've seen them down at Lakeshore, and I've seen them up in Etobicoke. Would we be having paramedics train there as well? Would we be going and letting them lease or use the space for paramedics, or would it be just specifically firefighters?
I would be looking for a multi-use facility. I've already spoken to Chief Van Dyke to say, hey, if I build something that has a training center, are you interested in contributing dollars and area? And if we provide the area and have something that can be usable. I happened to have a conversation with the folks at Northern Transformer, and they're looking to build their own working at heights training area. I said, hey, if I was ever to have an area where we could build a working at heights that my firefighters could use and you could do the training at, would you be interested in a partnership? And they said, if that's something you want to do, come knock on our door, we're happy to do it. So it's not just a fireplace, we would make it usable for anybody that we could. Wisely investing in the props that we need, if we can build the business case that says, hey, we're spending the money so that we can have others from the outside, not just fire come. But that's definitely on the table.
Thank you, Chief. Other questions or comments? Councillor Waters?
Thanks, Chief. I want to say thank you for the time that you gave Councillor Drodge and I to go through the plan, because at the last meeting, we did have a few concerns. We appreciate you taking not only an hour, but an hour and a half to spend time with us to go through the presentation, go through the numbers and that kind of stuff. So we did appreciate that. In our discussion, most of our concern was around the expansion. We're all for the process you've set up for hiring firefighters. We're okay with that. We're okay with most of the, all the equipment that you want to purchase. We even agreed that Station 1, which was a concern last time, is needed just because of the type of fires that are going to be associated with high-rise in downtown Alcona. But we did come around to the around Station 3 out of Stroud. And so you did an analysis for us, response time analysis, because I had requested, what would be the response times if we put the new station at 10th and Innisfil Beach Road. I keep on making that mistake, sorry. And in that, so just to, was I correct in seeing that Stroud, the campus, and Innisfil Heights would all fall in the proper response time under 8 minutes under that?
So through you, Mayor Dolan, to Councillor Waters, yes, that's definitely a possibility. And any request that comes for station, so I mean, in a perfect world, if this was to move forward and I was bringing a proposal to you at budget time, to members of council at budget time, I would definitely be bringing you an option of a Station 6 or a move of a station. Just remembering that our move of a station doesn't, and Treasurer Webb can correct me if I'm wrong, does not necessarily fall under DC eligible, but that's someone who has much more expertise in the finance of DCs than I do. Okay. But yes, I would definitely anticipate that you would want me to come to you with the Station 6 option or other options that are viable. So we would do it at that time.
So that was perfect, because we just wanted to open up the envelope a little bit in terms of what are the alternatives for maybe trying to be more efficient in terms of how we grow, because we think being innovative, being efficient is important for a strong growth scenario for the future. So I'm glad you were able to run that and allow us to see the numbers that came out of that, because by building the station there, then it gives you the option down the road around finances, whether or not you still need Station 3 in Stroud. If that basically, if that's a training facility, it's much larger than expected, and it can, and all the response times are the same, then, it gives you that flexibility down the road. And so that's what I was wanting to see. And so, I was comforted by the fact that, it's really important to get this plan passed right now so that they can present a budget to council. And there are all sorts of checks and balances in at that time that, we can have those discussions later on, and you could, based on what the growth plans are, you can present it to us there. So I felt comfortable with what you said, what we discussed, and so, I'm in agreement that we should get this passed with a slight recommendation that might come from Councillor Icey. So I appreciate your time. The other thing that came out of discussion was that around Station 1, which is in my ward, is that renovations are getting more expensive, as we've found out what a new station now costs us, is that to look outside the box in terms of, can we have multiple uses when we're doing a renovation? Can it have multiple partners who might be able to contribute money to doing that renovation? Could we build a commercial / fire station down there, or could we put, seniors condos over top of it? All those types of opportunities. So just trying to think outside the box when we come to that. So again, so I feel much more comfortable with it. I think Councillor Drodge, you feel the same way. So again, thank you for your time for doing that. And so I'm on board with moving forward, depending on Councillor Icey's recommendations. So thank you again for that time.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. I don't know how I'd feel about living that close to a fire station with the sirens going off all the time, but that's just me.
They already do.
True.
Our response times are quick that way.
Councillor Saunders, and then I'll go to Councillor Waters, or Icey, sorry, Councillor.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Deputy Mayor, Chief Thomas, I want to thank you for coming out, and I also want to thank your association that met with Councillor Richardson and I. We had a good conversation for like an hour and a half. It was really good because they answered all our questions, and I think that we were really heard, and they took it back with you, and I think the plan going forward is getting better. So I just want to say thank you for everybody for taking out the time to answer our questions.
Councillor Icey.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Chief Thomas, for that presentation. Definitely a lot of work has gone into this, and I would concur with other councillors. It was great to talk with members of the fire service and get our questions answered. So my question around the fire plan, there's been a lot of talk about the full-time staff, that the firefighters that we're looking to hire. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to the volunteers that are also proposed in the plan. And I guess what I've started to learn about, processes around going from a volunteer to a full-time, in a perfect world, I think you'd want, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you could hire all of your full-timers from your volunteer staff, you might be ahead of the game. So I was wondering if there was some strategies around, would you want more volunteer firefighters to come on board as well, just to have that pool to draw from when the time comes for the full-time staff? So maybe some comments on the volunteer side of the plan.
Sure. Through your Mayor Dolan to Councillor Icey and members of council. Yes, like I said, we're a composite fire department, and we can't do what we do without our volunteers. They're invaluable to us. There's a double-edged sword. Hiring all of you, so hire 20 firefighters from our volunteers means now we're 25 volunteer firefighters down. But we're always going to look at the best person for the job, and also if you volunteer in Innisfil, we do give that a preferential look because of the fact that we can look at that as experience right here in town. So yes, we still need to maintain, and actually the recommendation through the Fire Master Plan is to increase by 10 the volunteers in each of our stations. So 4 of our stations, Big Bay Point, Stroud, Alcona, and Lefroy, have 15 volunteer firefighters in each station. Cookstown has 25. The recommendation is to move up to 25 firefighters, volunteer firefighters in each station. And the reason for that is the ability for volunteer turnout when there are calls, and some of it is around retention and retraining or training new staff when firefighters leave. In that plan, because we were hiring 12 and then 8 firefighters, that along with our mandatory certification and our yearly certification requirements ties up our training officers for those 2 years. So in the following years, when we started to look at hiring 10 volunteers, I believe, I'll have to look at, let me just make sure I get the number or the year right for you. I don't want to misspeak. Yeah, in 2029 was the start of volunteer firefighters, and then 2030 was the other half. So that's maintaining our numbers on our volunteer side, and the ability to turn out every person that works in town and every business in town is down to a lower staffing level than they used to be. So the ability for an employer to be able to let a person leave to respond to a fire call is less than what it used to be. And the fact that we're doing more calls than we used to, when you're only doing, 60 to 100 calls a year, but now we're doing, multiple hundreds a year, that is also impacting those employers. So we can never know when the call is going to happen. So when it does happen, those that are available do come. But we're North American-wide, this is an issue. It's not just an Innisfil or an Ontario or a Canada thing. This is North American, and we talk about this frequently at our Chiefs Association meetings, et cetera. It's trying to be able to have the force to respond, to be able to meet the numbers, to respond safely like we talked about with the 1720 and the 1710 response. We will never be a full-time fire department. We need to have those volunteers. And because we only get about 30% on average turnout to an emergency call, 30% of 15 is 5. So I get 1 truck. So then we have to decide, is it a call I need the tanker, and that needs to go first, and now I don't have enough for the pump, or vice versa. If we increase our number of volunteer firefighters, then I can get good response out of those stations, because we require both the pumpers and the tankers when we talk about things like tanker shuttle accreditation and being able to have enough water to our areas that don't have municipal water. And we know in Innisfil we've got a lot of that, even residential areas that we need those tankers to come. So having the firefighters that are able to come when the tones go off is important, and that's why the recommendation came from in the Fire Master Plan, but also that was recommended in the ENY report.
Councillor Zanella.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm really on board with the plan, the 10-year plan, and I'm really happy to hear that you're looking at partnerships. I think that is a really good idea, and I hope that it's going to work well for us. Thank you.
Seeing no other hands, I'll jump in here if that's okay. So there was parts of the plan that I felt could have been better, but there's other things after giving it a second read that I missed on the first. I was more focused on the money piece or the big ticket item piece, and less on the items that are things that can be done like now or in the near future that could help us generate revenue. One of them was the reviewing the mutual aid and fire protection plans with our neighbors that I don't think have been looked at for some time, and if there's opportunity there. The idea of, as Councillor Zanella said, partnerships with paramedics, but also with other emergency services as far as training is concerned. But my first question is around what we're allowed to do under our RTC is there different levels of RTCs and we're like a lower level and there's more levels, or is there just one? Can we expand it as much as we can? And is there any, are we allowed are we just allowed to recoup expenses? Are you actually allowed to profit from an RTC?
Thank you for the question, Mayor Dolan. That's a great question, because our RTC agreement, there are no tiers in those. The RTC agreements with, I believe it's 22, or we might be at 23 RTCs in the province through the Fire Marshal's office, all are at the same level. Like we all have to agree to the same terms. One of those terms is it's not for exorbitant cost making or generating income. It's supposed to be fairly cost neutral. Having said that, there are different ways that we can have our own training center, and that's the intention, is to have our own training center to run courses, and then be able to call in the people who do the examination for the certification. That is something that provincially we're pushing back on from the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs. I would have to check with President Summers, but I believe the Ontario Professional Firefighters Association is also talking to the Fire Marshal's office about that, as well as the Training Officers Association, because we find that we're in a place where the Fire Marshal's office doesn't fairly treat RTCs, in the fact that they will cancel a course and then say Innisfil canceled it. But they've decided they don't, and no fault of their own, if they've got 30 courses running this weekend, they'll resource the ones that they can and cancel others. But my point is, they make Innisfil look like the bad guy to say that we canceled the course when we didn't. And so we are pushing back to say, hey, we need to generate some revenue, because otherwise it almost doesn't help us to have an RTC, because just covering costs doesn't account for the people hours to do the work. You know, our admin staff or business manager who does a lot of work setting up these courses, that's part of her workday and not necessarily in the cost recovery piece. So we're pushing back to that point to say we need more than just cost recovery. Like I say, we're not looking to become rich, but there should be a benefit to teaching courses and having people from other departments or outside to come in.
Thank you. And I think that's the first question to be asked. I mean, before hiring an architect or you know, is what do we want to build? If I think I saw 47 million plus land.
So the station itself is 23, our estimate, because it's $1,000 a square foot to build a station. We estimated in Innisfil Heights about 6 million for land procurement, unless we can get a lease or a deal. And then the training center piece, we were looking at between 12 and 15 million. So all totaled, I would say on the generous side, we're looking at about a $40 million all in land, station, and training center.
Okay, thank you for that. Thanks for correcting me. So even that, I mean, to see a business plan saying, okay, this is how much we can recover from renting out to paramedics. This is how many courses we can teach and recover money from. Understanding that we still need that training center as well, but even like doing the math and saying, okay, if we have to go to Borden or Honda, and we don't have it, what the difference would be. Because one of the things in the report was an example of the types of stations, and it showed one in Barrie that was the end of a commercial strip that was, 2 bays. Mm-hmm. And, is that something that could be considered prior to the headquarter RTC $40 million bill? So those are just questions, I think, that can be answered after the fact. But there was 2 other revenue things that I wanted to ask you. When was the last, and this isn't fair maybe to ask you this, but if you can get back to me if you don't know the answer, but when was the last time MTO increased the amount we get per call on the 400 series highways? I remember asking that question to Kathleen Wynne when she was the Minister of Transportation. So that was a long time ago. So I just wondered if it's, and is it enough? Can you respond to, because when I looked at all those blue marks, where Station 6 is going, like much of those blue marks were on the 400 and the province's responsibility.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Can I just ask, do you remember the MTO rate? I'm off the top. But what is it now? So to answer your question, Mayor Dolan, it does go up usually twice a year. MTO revises their rate, and we are in the $580 mark right now. I don't have the bylaw number off the top of my head, but our fees bylaw for fire, for cost recovery, we actually have gone to the MTO rate for a lot of the things that we bill for because it is a fair rate. We were spending a lot of unnecessary administration personnel time trying to figure out what class of firefighter and who went to each call, how long they were there, estimating kilometers and cost per kilometer and wear and tear on a truck. When we did the math on those and we took the MTO rate was usually higher or just marginal, but never below what we would have charged previously. So that is a fair rate in my opinion. They do adjust it usually twice a year, and I'm comfortable with that rate. I don't think that we're losing on that. Otherwise, I would recommend a different fee structure.
Good, thank you for that. And then with the fee structure, so do we recover a lot of what we bill? I remember we put that fee structure in, and we got a lot of complaints from residents who just went through a traumatic house fire and then got a bill from the fire department and weren't so thrilled about it. But I know other communities use a third party like Firemark to do it, and we've never gone down that route. And I just wondered about, I remember when we put in what we called the stupid tax, which was when we had to rescue the same ice fishermen, much to the peril of, and putting our firefighters at risk, but like twice on the same day, rescue them off the lake. So we put in an escalating fee, I believe at that time, for people that endangered our firefighters by making risky behavior like that. But my question is, are we fully exploring everything we can do as far as fees is concerned, and are we getting a good rate of compliance?
MTO compliance, we're usually good on. Yeah, so MTO compliance, we do usually get that. That bill gets billed right to MTO and sent to us. That's often billed to their insurance company, not the person themselves, like to your point of them having a bad day and then getting a bill. Our fee structure, if you remember, Mayor Dolan, we did, when I updated this fee structure, Innisfil was charging every time we responded to put a fire out in the town of Innisfil, and we as a fire team and council agreed that maybe was not appropriate when they were paying for fire protection. And so we implemented the fee structure for those extra things and those above and beyond. So, for example, responding to a structure fire in Innisfil is what is covered in your taxes, so to speak. But then if there's an investigation needed and I have to hold a scene and do a spark watch or a fire watch, that we bill the MTO rate to the people who can pass that on to their insurance company as long as they have insurance. But we do bill for those extras, and to put it politely, we still have the stupid tax. So we have billed people who we've had multiple calls for and shouldn't be there. And I can tell you 100% of the time they're not happy about it, but we do, and I think we're pretty good on compliance. Sometimes we don't, but we're pretty good on compliance. But to answer the other part of your question, have we exhaustively looked at other ways we could generate revenue? I'll probably always say no. I'm sure there's other rocks that we could overturn and look for, and it's on our radar, and we'll prioritize it as much as we can given what we're able to do and need to do every day.
Thank you for that. And the reason I'm kind of focusing more on funds versus anything else is because the impact of this fire master plan on residents is significant. And in my opinion, going to get worse. We talk about development charges, but right now, development charges are a 4-letter word, both for the federal government and for the provincial government. And I don't think there's a clear understanding with all the ministers. They don't understand. You're getting property taxes. Why do you need development charges? So when Minister Kersner was at the Station 2, I'm saying, so development charges pay for this equipment. Property taxes pay for the people who drive the equipment, the gas that goes into the equipment, the air that goes in the tanks. But right now there's a run on development charges. Just last week or this week, I can't even remember what week, there was an announcement by the Prime Minister and the Premier about reducing development charges. Right now it's voluntary, but if this plan was introduced last year and you told me, well, Fire Station 6 is 100% DC eligible, I would say, fantastic, build it. But that's not around anymore. Some of that development charge obligation is going to fall to the property taxpayer. There's no two ways about it. So we've always said growth should pay for growth. And I think everybody believes that growth should pay for growth. Growth doesn't pay for growth. It never has. It came close, but it never quite has. When we supplement some of our OLG money with the development charges, then it doesn't impact the property taxpayer. But now that burden is being shifted from the development community paying for that growth infrastructure to the current property taxpayer paying for that growth infrastructure. And when you've got residents who are not real keen on growth in the first place, and now you tell them not only are we going to grow, but we're going to grow and you're going to pay for it. It's not an easy message to sell. So things like new fire halls, new fire trucks, and everything else, new parks, new libraries, new everything that we have to buy when our new snow plows, when our town grows, more and more of that burden is going to be put on the existing taxpayer, which makes our job even more difficult. So I'm just saying that because of the temperature of the government right now and the fact that this growth that we're all projecting is going to happen, we're at a tipping point. We're going to get to a tipping point when I don't know what would happen if we said, well, if you aren't going to give us money for roads, if you're not going to give us money for water and sewer, we can't build the orbit. If we can't get money from developers to put in the infrastructure to build a high-rise tower, we can't build it. So I'm saying we're at a bit of a push-pull moment, and I really believe that this growth spurt that we've been in is going to slow down for a few years. And there's going to be a lot more questions about who is paying for what and why. So I'm just wanting you to understand why when you tell me, it's okay, development charges are going to pay for it, I'm going, I don't know, maybe not. Okay, I'm done with my rant. Anybody else want to speak? Councillor Waters, and then we'll see if there's, and Councillor Constantine.
I certainly appreciate what the mayor has just said, but at the same time, I think the chief has said that, he'll bring forward what the growth plan allows to bring forward and also those considerations. So I think he's quite aware of that situation and would be cognizant when he brings it to the budget. And so next council, we're going to have a lot of fun. Thank you.
Councillor Constantine.
My reason for supporting the plan is I looked at it as more of an asset to the town of Innisfil than a liability. and it's due to the training facilities. If that work as how it shows on the paper, I believe that over the long run, that can generate revenue to offset some of the costs for, for salaries. I hope I'm right.
Thank you, Councillor Constantine. I hope you are too. Anyone else? Then we have a motion that's been moved by Councillor Ices. Do you have a seconder, Councillor Ices?
Yes, Councillor Saunders is my seconder.
Thank you. So I will call the vote.
Just hold.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Ices?
The amended motion isn't up there yet that I wanted to speak about. It's up there now. I just maybe wanted to add a little bit, it's not lost on me on sitting on council that these are very important discussions that we're having around, that the fire service, the safety of our residents. And the plan is a very thorough document, and I can see how much work has gone into it, and I could see it being very useful for the growth that we are experiencing. And keeping the town safe is a huge responsibility, and I wouldn't want council to hinder what Innisfil Fire has to do. And it was doubly reminded to myself when I walked in to the town hall tonight, and there was a fire call, and the fire truck with sirens going was going down the road, looking after our residents, and so I don't know how you did that. He timed it when I was coming in, but that was good job. So listening to your presentation and talking with the firefighters this week and reading the plan more in depth, I don't think my amendments to the motion change what we're talking about a lot. I think it highlights a lot of the things that Mayor Dolan was saying about giving council the opportunity to balance the costs that the town needs to spend, and for me it's more about when these expenses will be dealt with, that the motion gives council a little bit more leeway, perhaps some guardrails around the plan, instead of in the plan a lot of it talks about a time frame. So just in the changes that you can see there are point 2, council approved the fire master plan in principle. Point 3, the council directs staff to update and bring to council the establishing and regulating bylaw with a presentation on service levels of comparators to Bradford, West Gwillimbury, New Tecumseh, Springwater, along with proposed updates to our mutual aid and fire protection agreements. So just maybe a little more understanding about where Innisfil sits on service levels, and perhaps, as you mentioned, overturning a few more stones, looking for us to figure out the costs that are involved with the plan that's proposed. And then finally, the point that council directs staff to report back through future town and budget processes to seek additional approvals for the financial and human resources required to implement the fire plan in phases aligned with population growth and service demand, and then also including a business plan case for revenue around the regional training sessions that we spoke about. So perhaps attempting to align a little bit more of the growth paying for growth, where some of these initiatives in the plan are brought forward when we have a bit more of a tax base to spread those costs over. So those are the amendments that I'm putting on the floor. Happy to hear what other councillors have to say on that, and hopefully support that, as we definitely want to move this forward for the town and for the fire service to do their job.
Questions or comments on the amendment? Deputy Fowler.
Thank you, Worship. I agree with points 3 and 4 right off the get-go. I think that's actually well added, and I appreciate that. The only question I have is, what are the legal ramifications for in principle? What, does that alter anything, or does it keep it? How does that change the playing field? I just want to know before, because is it saying that we agree in principle, but we're not obligated, or is there any legal ramifications in regards to this? How do we explain this?
CAO Gershow.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. It's an interesting question, Deputy Mayor Fowler. I guess a question of interpretation. My interpretation is that it doesn't change number 2 a lot, but I would argue it weakens the statement slightly from what it used to say, which was that it used to say, approve the fire master plan as the guiding vision. In principle, suggests that something's being held back. That's my personal opinion.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none on the seconder, the seconder approved the amendments. All right, all in favor of the motion as amended? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief, very much for being here tonight, and for many members of the service as well. Appreciate it. And we'll move on to the next item, which is RISE recommendation, moved by point of order. So the deputy says that we need to go back and do a motion as amended recommendation?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Typically, when an amendment is put on the floor, the motion as amended was voted on already on the screen. Yeah.
Thank you. So a RISE recommendation, please, moved by Councillor Waters, second by Councillor Richardson. All those in favor? That is carried. And then we move to adopting the recommendations from the committee of the whole. The one recommendation from the committee of the whole is Councillor Drodge, Councillor Zanella. All those in favor? That is carried. And then we do our notices of motion, which there are none, and then I believe we're to announcements. Announcements, members of council, Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. There's an Easter potluck scheduled for tomorrow at Innisfil YMCA between 12:30 and 3:30 by the Innisfil Silver Club. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councillor Constantine, known messages. Councillor Richardson.
Tomorrow from 1:30 to 2:30 is a baby bookworm drop-in at the Lakeshore branch. On Friday is Friday morning song circle from 11:30 to 1. If you haven't had a chance to go to check that out at the Lakeshore branch, make sure you do. It's a lot of fun. On Tuesday next week at Nantyre Shores, there is a presentation of Know the Signs of Healthy Relationships and Human Trafficking. It's in partnership with My Sister's Place. That's a good thing to attend. On the 23rd of April, there's an author talk with Peter McLeod and his book Democracy's Second Act. And also coming up, save the date, is April 25th, is Comic Fest at the Lakeshore branch from 10 till 2.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one item. Lions Club is having an early bird draw on April 25th, and you can still get your tickets for the car draw for $20.
Well, there's no sense getting a ticket because I have the winning ticket already. No, yes, and urge everybody to buy their tickets. Councillor Zanella. Councillor Saunders.
Thanks. Sandy Cove Bingo is every other Sunday. It's open to residents of Sandy Cove, or if you're a member of the Legion. And the game room at the Nest is open from Wednesday to Sundays.
Thank you. Councillor Drodge.
Thanks, Your Worship. On April 9th at the Cookstown Branch Library, there's an adult social, board games, card games, etc., from 1 to 2. And just a reminder, every Saturday at the Cookstown Branch, there is a drop-in activity from 10 to 11:30, and this Saturday is Build Your Own Piggy Bank. On April 24th, there's a barbecue salmon dinner at the St. John's Anglican Church. You have to buy your tickets before April 18th. And on Thursday, April 23rd, 100 Men That Give a Damn is hosting their charity event at the Cookstown Pub at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Deputy Fowler.
Thank you, Worship. April 20th at Town Hall, we have our volunteer appreciation social. We are the gears of the community, but they are the ones who oil it and make it go so smoothly. So anyone who's RSVP'd, I look forward to seeing you out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just have two. So I did attend the Cookstown and District Chamber of Commerce, their annual general meeting. It was well attended. They had appointed a new board and thanked the outgoing board. And there were two presentations. One of them was from our own Amber Green from Economic Development, outlining to the businesses all of the support the town of Innisfil can offer, and it was really well received. And the Innisfil Historical Society on Saturday, April the 18th, will be having a guest speaker right here in council chambers, and her name is Barbara Dixon, and she wrote a book on the bomb girls, trading aprons for ammo, and it's about, during World War II, women going into high security and dangerous bomb munition and manufacturing munitions for the war effort. And I'm really excited because my grandmother was a bomb girl, so I'm really excited to go and hear that talk. Anything for the corporation, CAO Gershow? Nothing? Then we'll move to confirming bylaw and an adjournment at 8:42, moved by Councillor Drodge, seconded by Councillor Richardson. All those in favor? Thank you very much. For those watching online, thank you for joining tonight, and we'll see you all next week for our planning public meeting. Good night.